Kia ora, my name is Ari here. I'm float across a few little jobs. I work within the iwi for settlement. I'm also director on some companies, including the mussel farm, and also working in the DHB space. So it's me, and looking forward to being able to share our trials, tribulations, and joys today.
Kia ora tātou. Aileen Laurie, I'm the Chief Executive of the Apuriki District Council. I've been there in that role for a decade now, and before that 15 years with the Regional Council. So my passion is anything to do with the coast, and particularly anything to do with aquaculture and anything local government. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. David Cunliffe, tōku ingoa, Ngāti Pākehā, Te Aroa, Te Maunga, Te Waikato, Te Awa, and it's been my pleasure to be involved with the Eastern Bay Plenty for a few years now as a management consultant, helping them with their regional economic development strategy, and looking forward to chatting with you all today and thinking about what the lessons from that sub-region are replicable or have cross-cutting implications for the districts that you are all serving. It's been a lot of fun.
For those of you who were at the webinar when we were all together, you'll notice that we've re-recorded this part of the webinar because of the challenges that we had yesterday with running the presentation. So welcome again. So this is such a moment in time. COVID-19 has starkly revealed, uncovered underlying systemic issues that were there already, but they've really come to the fore with racism, with environmental degradation, with inequity, really noticing inequity a lot more, and with poverty. And these things are really hard things. We have to have courage to work with them differently. We have to understand that we've been relying on top-down strategies for too long, and they simply don't work. We have to learn to work differently, and we have to learn to work together fast. And we have to do that in place, because place is where we live, it's where we learn, it's where we grow up, it's where we bring up children with hope or without hope, with vision or without vision. It's place, it's in place that those things happen. So today, we're really sharing some information and some learning from communities who have really been working around these ideas for some years. They've been working together around economic and social transformation wrapped around iwi and Māori aspirations, and some of their learning is useful to other communities. It's certainly been revealing for us to look back over the last decade with some of these communities, and we've walked alongside them for some time, so we've learned things along the way. And today we're going to share a couple of the frameworks that we've noticed seem like really common patterns and useful information that both reveal what the patterns that happen in communities, but can also intentionally help them go fast. So today we're sharing stories from Kawerau and from community, and we're starting with these big concepts. The first one is the working together continuum. For sustainable transformation, we simply can't get there without learning to do this faster and moving from the left, from loose connections and competition quite often, to trust on the right-hand side. And no one's saying this is easy. It takes time and it takes determination. But what we're noticing that it's simply not possible to get sustainable change in place or transformation without paying deep attention to this and investing in relationships, investing in understanding where you fit with different partners on different parts of the continuum. And it's not saying everything has to be at the integration phase. For some, it might be fine just to coexist, but you need to understand that and understand why with respect to what you're trying to do in your communities. So this continuum has been really useful as we walk alongside communities and they look at where they fit and how they fit together. The second big idea is really drawn from us noticing over the last 12 years the common patterns that seem to emerge and that communities go through, that if we use them intentionally can help the boat to go faster effectively. So you'll see at the centre are community-led development principles. The things about shared visions, always working from strengths and assets and working together across sectors, working with difference. Collaborating across leadership. So leading quite differently and always acting, learning and adapting. And acting, learning and adapting is vital in our ability to go faster together in local communities with central government. And one of our points today is how important central government is and how differently central government needs to work with local places to help make the boat go faster. At the centre of these are a belief that communities can thrive, all communities can thrive by working together more effectively and by focusing on their visions. So if we start at the top, loose connections. So what we notice happens is loose connections come together, organisations or people that maybe haven't worked together before in a community, but something drives them to, and it might be a crisis, like what recently happened in COVID-19, or it might be an issue or something people deeply care about in their community. So they come together to talk. They come together because they have a belief that things need to be different and they're prepared to take action to do that. And by taking action together and by reflecting on what happens when you take action together, relationships grow and understanding grows, and understanding of the vision and perhaps deepening of the vision grows. And as you act together often, you potentially grow a lot more people, organisations, sectors with you. And as you do that and have the confidence and the capacity to act, you can move towards a capacity to organise. So perhaps, for example, you'll hear stories today of cross-sector leadership organising to go and visit other communities that seem to have a similar vision. Or it might be organising information events together or engagements together rather than separately as organisations because or sectors or people, because you've developed this capacity to organise. And as your maturity in that grows, you can move towards the capacity to collaborate. And when you're collaborating, you really are working commonly around a vision. And there's no question that if something's going to get in the way of that vision, or you see something that's an opportunity for your shared vision, you just automatically call up to your partners and your stakeholders, and you collaborate around getting over that hurdle or making sure you take advantage of that opportunity that you see that's going to help your community move towards its vision. And as the capacity to collaborate matures, so too does the capability and capacity to grow. So either to grow by going deeper into the vision and gathering more people around the same vision, or even developing more visions together and bringing more people on board, and so going round the cycle again. This takes time, and it's all about developing trust, shared visions, growing common ideas and collaborative leadership that's constantly working differently and bringing other people in. So today we're going to move to hearing some stories from local people from Kyoto and from Opotiki. And I'll start with One Little Engine in Kyoto and just telling you a little bit about a video link that's in this presentation, which you can watch because we didn't play it on the webinar in the end. So this little engine, Kyoto, has over years developed a network called Industrial Symbiosis Kyoto, and that's wrapped around the local aspiration that everything will be used in Kyoto for the betterment of Kyoto people. So it is an industrial town, and the network embraces the local iwi and Māori aspirations. And of course, they've got geothermal energy there, they've got a railhead there, and they've got access to lots of timber, but also lots of other goods from across the Eastern Bay of Plenty. So their vision is to really grow and sustain their community using all of those assets and using all of the byproducts and downsides of those assets and making sure that nothing goes to waste. So when you watch that video, and understand that industrial symbiosis Kawerau is a network that embraces also industry leaders, business leaders, the local school and educators, the council, which plays a really important part as a backbone to a lot of the work, and the Economic Development Agency, TOI-EDA from the region, the Chamber of Commerce, and many other sectors and people who have a stake in the future of Kawerau. So that little engine can tell you its story, and particularly take note that the video really focuses on what drives them, what's their vision that's really kept them going together, and what got them started on that. So that's a great story to watch and think about in terms of the frameworks that we've shared. So now we're going to move to another little engine that we can learn so much from, and that's the township and the district of Opotiki, and particularly around the township, which is in the rohe of Whakatohia. So I'll hand now to Arahia first to start with her part of the story.
Kia ora everyone again. I came back to Opotiki 17 years ago. Opotiki's my home. It's my mother's tribal homeland. I wasn't brought up here. I didn't go to school here, but it's always been home. So when I returned 17 years ago in 2003, in retrospect, I guess I had pretty rose-tinted glasses. I thought a small town like Opotiki, I thought everyone would know each other. I thought certainly everybody from Whakatohia descent would know which of the 8 marae they came from. I thought the 30-metre footpath that separated the council, the local council, with the iwi entity would have been the most well-worn footpath in town. I thought it was a community, not a tale of two communities in one place. And lo and behold, I thought I could buy my husband 6-pack of underpants in the main street, but I can't. You can't buy underpants in the main street. So anyway, I slipped back into country life after living most of my life in Auckland, Wellington or Rotorua, mainly looking after my parents in the first year. Fell into, as you do, I guess, marae hapu iwi politics, as well as spending 2 terms as a local councillor on the local Opotiki District Council. And in those spaces, especially in the marae hapu iwi, I got involved with the whole aquaculture and what's now known as the mussel farm. And that was a dream of our previous leaders on the Whakatohia Māori Trust Board over 20 years ago. Courageous was a word that I think Barbara used, extremely courageous, born out of crisis, no jobs. We were bleeding in terms of losing our people. We were exporting our people. All the issues of rurality and inequities, and the stats go to prove that, deprivation stats. Anyway, the dream of our leaders around that Whakatohia Māori Trust Board was we need to create some jobs. We need to find something that will keep our people in work and hopefully bring some people home. And this is all pre-settlement, and to this day we're still not a settled iwi in terms of the Waitangi Tribunal settlement process. So we've had 20 years of hurdles and lessons. It took 9 years and $1 million to battle to complete the consent, and Aileen can attest to that. We lodged it in 2001. I think we got it approved in 2009. Went into, had partnership with 54% owned by Whakatohia and 46% owned by external partners. When I look at Barbara's theory of change, and I look at our relationship back then with our partners then, very little connections, connectivity, and certainly, not saying we didn't share visions, but they weren't deep-rooted. We basically just wanted to farm the sea, and that was the commonality we had as a partnership. Anyway, these partners made a statement in about 2012 that they wanted out. They wanted out of the mussel industry, and so we had to go and Whakatoi had to go and look for new partners, investors. So we spent about 18 months, and we hunted high and low, over the hill and far away.
Arahia, you're on mute by mistake, my friend.
Thank you. We hunted high and low and over the hill and far away to no avail. No investors were interested until we realised we better look inside our own backyard. We went to our local community, and within 2 weeks, here's the sales pitch that we went out to our local community with. Come and join us on a business venture that's never been done before. It's totally unproven, high risk, and you better be prepared to lose your money. And we had them in just under 2 million in 2 weeks. So that was the pitch, but it got them in. And it was very exciting. Sitting around our first meeting together as a community, we looked around the table and we thought, we've got this ability. We can do this as a community. We've got the answer around this table. And we do have that ability to thrive, is the word that Barbara used. It was a pretty exciting first meeting. And, you know, it's 2 weeks in terms of getting the money. It sounds like it happened overnight. And if you go back again to Barbara's theory of change, but, you know, when you look at that took years of development, I think, in terms of communities talking, leaders of our iwi and local government coming together, sharing visions. So, you know, that 2 weeks of getting the investment in was a result of, I think, of, you know, about 15 years of hard work as the leaders through the community. But anyway, we the biggest, deepest vision we all shared, and that's what brought us together. And that's transformation through economic development, transformation through jobs, and really deep rooted. We've got investors there, all community, who will never see a personal private return in their lifetime. That, you know, I pretty much say that, and that's the depth of the investment in our community. So anyway, so that was pretty exciting. 2016, those same investors came back to the directors. I'm a director, and said, this is not going fast enough. We need our own boat. We need more mussel lines in the water. So another $2.8 million later from that same investment pool, we got our own boat and we started accelerating further lines in the water. And then in 2017, we realised we needed another boat, and there was another $4 million from the same community pool. What kept us together was that deep-rooted vision and sharing and caring and knowing that we had the answers for our community. And the vision of jobs. That last capital raise for we had to go out for a second boat. That's another 4 million. We found another partner in our collaboration, and that was the boat builder. They shared similar visions in terms of jobs. So there was a training program that we put up, and kids from our community got a chance to go up and work on the boat build in Auckland, taking kids out of a small place like Apuriki and plonking them into Auckland. And it was pretty exciting, and it worked. We've had failures along the way. And those failures have turned into huge learnings, and a few of those learnings have turned into intellectual property for that company. And then we still felt like we were sort of hitting a ceiling in terms of our ability to hit the bootstraps and, you know, have that final push of growth. And then along comes the PGF fund and the Crown sharing very similar visions to us as a community, and that is the ability to provide jobs and meaningful jobs. We want to provide meaningful jobs. So the PGF has enabled that final burst of, and I'm looking at Barbara's theory of change again, in terms of that capacity to grow. So that PGF fund that was announced last year, and it's in train now, will give us not only accelerated development on the mussel farm, but to provide and justify the build of a factory in Opotiki. That's happening now, and I think you'll see a working site down there below the bottom right-hand corner. That's the construction in progress. Hopefully, by this time next year, we can invite you all to the opening of that, and as our new employees walk through that factory door. So that's been a really, really exciting journey. Obviously, it's not over yet, but going in alignment with this is the collaboration and the working alongside local government and Aileen and the council in their project, which we call them twin projects. So we had the mussel development and the farm, and then the project that the council's driving, and that's the harbour redevelopment. And there's been lots of ebbs and flows in that relationship, bringing together iwi around the table, with local government around the table, with private enterprise. Lots of ebbs and flows, joys and frustrations, different views, and to use Barbara's word, different views and different approaches, but they're critical. The bottom line, what keeps us around that table is we all share that same vision of having that harbour open and to provide that, enable the mussel farm to grow even more so. So there's been really, really diverse entities working around that table, but we do have that same goal. And that's the harbour redevelopment and to enable further growth. I guess for me, you know, I was just stuck in the middle of it all. In terms of analysis, you know, no one knows your place better than you. No one knows my place better than me, or no one knows our place better than us. No one knows our community better than us. For central government, to enable locally led development, I guess there needs to be, for me, you know, that ability for you to share the power, to have trust, and sometimes stand aside. Anyway, that's me for now.
Barbara, you might be on mute. There you go.
Aileen, your turn.
Sorry, just finding my unmute button. Well, yes. Hi, everybody. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity today to talk. I'm just sort of reflecting as we're going through the theory of change and the theory of community-led development, how we never set out to be a poster child for community-led development or economic development for that matter. What we set out to do was around the vision that Arahia talked about. So I just wanted to touch on that initially, the whole shared vision side of things, because that's fundamentally what underpins everything that's happened since this started. And I first came to it 20 years ago. I was pregnant with my first child now, and he's wandering around, you know, as a fully grown man with full facial hair these days. So it's, you know, it's been a very long journey. I started in the regional council on the regulatory side of things, and so I've seen it from just about every angle now. So just touching on the shared vision, it was quite important at the outset. There was a number of things being talked about. There was a mayor who had a passion for growing protein out of the ocean. There was Kaumātua and Whakatohea saying, well, we've lost all our land. Do you think we can have the sea instead? And then there was a survey that Whakatohea did around the community. You know, what's important to the community? And the thing that overwhelmingly came back was jobs, positive jobs that were meaningful. And that was the thing that was overwhelmingly wanted by the community. So all of these kind of things all coalesced into a single vision. And that's when Sea Lord turned up and they were doing speculative applications all around the country. And when they came to Opotiki, it just kind of crystallised that actually this is the vision that aligns with what everybody wants. So just in terms of the ocean, it's sort of in the DNA of the local people. We know it's the best fishing site in the country. It's you know, not very widely known until now. And the sea has always grown amazing stuff in this district. So it kind of grew and coalesced, and I have to say at the outset it was really difficult for the council to deal with something this big. At that stage, $53,000 represented a 1% rate rise across the whole district. So when you start to have dreams about doing what is now known to be a $100 million project, it's pretty tricky starting out. So I have to say, pay tribute to the early people that engage in the process, and particularly Bay Trust, who stumped up quite a lot of cash and support at the outset that actually got the project off the ground, inspiring communities who came in alongside and helped that vision grow. At that stage, we were very much about building the picture. We had very deliberate communications process. We monitored what was going on in our community with surveys to make sure that this was actually what the community wanted, and it was. There was something like 95% support coming through in our annual surveys. Even something like 75% were willing to have a rates rise to make it happen. And you show me another project that people are willing to have a rates rise for. One of the things that the Mayor did early on was he took people on field trips. And the field trips went, well, we had 3 of them to China, 2 of them to South Australia, a couple to the Hauraki, and a couple down to Nelson. And it wasn't just the Mayor and the CE and the Trust Board Mayor and CE. He took half the community with him. There was a bus that went to Nelson. When we went to China, half of the Bay of Plenty came with us. I think we had 65 of us and managed to take in the World Expo at the same time. But the purpose of all that was to go and learn about how big aquaculture could be and what that insatiable need for protein was. A day in the Shanghai fish markets was just amazing when you come back and you think about a portakey and where it could fit in that scene. So yeah, very, very deliberate sort of communications in the early days. The other thing we did was we found some amazing people on the terrace in Wellington. We knew that we didn't speak Wellington language, and I think we probably knew that Wellington didn't speak portakey language. So what we got was, in the middle there was a bunch of translators, and that's where David came into the story a bit later on. Yeah, so in taking this project forward, I guess credibility was a major issue, certainly at the outset. You know, massive project like this, tiny rating base, high deprivation and lots of community issues. So we took it in stages. Firstly, the resource consent, and that was approved in 2009 with no appeals. Not many projects of this nature, and you can see it's up on your screen now. Those set of training walls there to go through the RMA process with so much support and no appeals was amazing, and that really was the first step around the credibility. Just shortly after that was approved, the fisheries permits finally came out of the process as well, and that's a very long and complicated story. If anyone ever wants to know, do give me a call. I can talk you through all of that. But the essential issue there was a fisheries tangle up with the RMA. From there we ended up doing 5 business cases actually. One to get it into our long-term plan, very bureaucratic, but the auditors need that. Second one was to the Bay of Plenty Regional Council to secure $20 million out of their Regional Infrastructure Fund. So that was a quadruple bottom line business case. And from there we've done 3 separate business cases through government. The first one that secured us $4.5 million to step through a number of things that Cabinet believed were risks in the project. And then there was the business case that essentially drove the tender process and the design process that we hopefully are about to see, well, we have just seen an award to head construction for the build of the harbour as a result of that. And then of course the final business case was the one that secured the PGF funding. So throughout this we've had an incredibly diverse group of partners that have, and different parties that have been in and been out of the project. I've mentioned Bay Trust, who were so there for us in the early stages. Without them, this would not have happened. Whakatōhea, that relationship has just grown and solidified through this process. Bay of Plenty Regional Council, and then many guises of science, planning, regulatory funding, and then more latterly government. In the process there, we also had some commercial people brought into the process. So I can't think of a more diverse group of people to try and share a vision than that group. Just I'd like special mention around the PGF. The the real change that Minister Jones has brought into the PGF is really to have the staff front up going, how can we do this, rather than should we do this? It was really the first time that I guess ministries turned their minds to actually pushing this over the line and really helped us to get there. So really appreciate that. And so just if we can flick to the next slide, whoever's driving the vehicle today. Hopefully, there we go. This is our party. So we had a massive celebration. We've had a number of street parties actually, but this is the third one. Yeah, and it was a real yay moment. Poor Arahia, we still can't get men's underwear, although I thought it was women's underwear you were looking for. But anyway, that's, you know, it's only a matter of time till we get that lingerie shop open up on the main street. But there you go. That's the community partying. It was absolutely fantastic. And just lastly, I just wanted to finish by saying that first diagram that Barbara put up about moving from competing to integrating, and it's, you know, funny, we're going through some documents now, as you do for government funding, and actually the boundaries are so unclear. And just reflecting on it today, I'm thinking, oh, that's because we're integrated now. Once upon a time, the boundaries were incredibly clear because nobody stepped over them. But now we're going, oh, who's responsible for that? Oh, I don't know. So I think we've done quite well into moving to that space of integrate. And just, I guess, lastly, up on the screen there is our leaders. On the left there, Don Restra, previous mayor, through John Forbes. And there's John Forbes shaking hand with Robert, the chairman of the Whakatui Trust Board. And the photo up the top there, that's Lynn Restra, current mayor and daughter of Don, Dickie Farrer and myself. And that's been the leadership. Vaughan Payne's the only one missing out of that lot, but otherwise that would have been the leadership for the last 2 decades on this project. So yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Kia ora. Thanks, Aileen and Arahia, and I think you're probably able to hear coming to life the real value of thoughtfulness about what you're trying to achieve, the importance of common visions and working together really, really intentionally, and the value of reflection. You're hearing Arahia and Aileen reflect back over 10 or 12 years of what's happened and really think about what helped them move through each different step. At this point, I'll ask David to make a few comments, and we were going to show a short video from Kyoto, which we will send to you, but we are running a bit of short of time. So David, perhaps I'll ask you to make a few comments about what you're hearing and reflecting on so far, and then go into adding on how you came into the picture and what you've added value to in terms of top down meeting bottom up and really growing the capacity of the small engines of Aotearoa.
Thank you, Barbara, and kia ora tātou. I think what we've seen so far is the interaction between the community-led ideas and movement that kicked not only part of the Aporiki Harbour project off, but a range of other initiatives around the Eastern Bay. And we've heard from Arahia how central it was that the iwi played a really active role as mana whenua in pulling together the project and garnering some of the resources. And then Aileen has told you about just how long it's taken and how many hurdles they had to jump from planning and resource processes right through to seed funding for various stages of design. The importance of an active central government partner, which allows EDAs, I think, to play a really catalytic role. Barbara reflecting the role of TOI, and how it's all come together. So with those different pieces of the jigsaw puzzle, perhaps, yes, if I just very quickly, and actually with a lot of humility, because we've only been here for the last 3 years in the firm that I'm a part of, helping to weave some of the threads of that rope together in a way that would give the Crown confidence from a funding perspective. So I'm going to take a sub-regional perspective. Barbara, if you'd just like to bring that map slide up, and participants can see this little top-down view of the Eastern Bay of Plenty geography, and you'll see on there a bunch of different boxes which very, very roughly represent where on that map different centres of resource endowment exist, and the green ones, some of the, I'm just looking at the key here, the existing opportunities, the white ones, some of the new opportunities, and the orange boxes represent some of the core infrastructure that was required from the Crown as a public good funding partner to catalyse those opportunities. Now, we first were involved as a consulting firm, Stakeholder Strategies. We got a call from one of the local government entities in the sub-region saying, can you help us just draw up a bit of a project list of all these community-led projects we've got going? We think we've got about 30. By the time it was finished, there was 76, all of various stages of development, with accounting that didn't match, with cost-benefit analysis that was a bit uneven and no common frameworks. And if you pop up the next slide, that process led first to a process of clustering those various initiatives around different sectors or themes. And I think really happily for the Eastern Bay of Plenty, there was an aquaculture sector theme around a portiki. I'll come onto the graph details in a second. There was a horticulture theme right up and down the East Coast, mainly around kiwi fruit, also blueberries and a few other things. There was a manufacturing and industrial theme around Kawerau, and there was a tourism and boat building theme around Whakatane. And what the government had told the region was they were most interested in sustainable job creation. And so we were able, by getting the projects that bore upon each of those, to calculate how many incremental jobs, which are represented by the dark blue boxes here, could be created if the PGF approached these projects as a funding partner. And we're also able to work out the PGF dollars invested per sustainable job created, which is the line at the top of the graph, ranging from around $60,000 to around $70,000 one-off per job. And for other regions, there's a little bit of a key here, which is that the PGF likes to see the cost of job creation in the 50 to 80K range. If it's less than 50, there's a strong hypothesis the market should probably get there with private capital, and if it's more than 80, it's probably not competitive with PGF opportunities elsewhere in the pipeline. So luckily, we not only had a sector region matrix that mapped together well, but we also had some economics that were in the sweet zone. Take questions on the detail later, but I guess an overall reflection here is that getting this stuff nailed was a bit of a weakest link problem. It wasn't a question of either or between community-based bottom-up initiatives or iwi involvement or the passion that local government has shown, as Aileen has outlined. If any one of those factors weren't there, and if it hadn't been possible to tie the threads together in a way that suited the funding prospects from central government, and if central government hadn't had a PGF, which was a new take on activist investment in the regions, this stuff wouldn't have happened. It's been an amazing privilege to be part of the journey so far, because these projects taken as a whole have the opportunity to lift total employment in the Eastern Bay of Plenty region by nearly 20%. That's one new job in 5. That will turn a labour surplus into, unless we're quite clever, a labour shortage. It will mean that there are sustainable income streams for a whole lot of families in whānau that otherwise wouldn't have had them. And it will turn around all of those difficult statistics that we know poverty leads to and deprivation leads to. And this is against a background of some of the most severe raupatu anywhere in New Zealand in centuries gone by. So our hope is that we can restore some opportunity, and with that, economic justice and well-being to a region that deserves it and needs it and has worked bloody hard to get it. So great to be part of the team for that. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Quite well, as you can see, it's a very inspiring story, and like most community and economic development projects. It's got the gestation period of an elephant, not a mouse. Can I ask people to put their videos on for me, please? And if you have a question that you'd like to pose to any of our presenters, now is your chance.
To get the conversation going through you, Susan, I think we've got people here from a range of different regions, from Hauraki, from Northland, from South Taranaki, from Waikato, and elsewhere. And I'm just wondering from our participants, what of the Eastern Bay story rings bells for you? And what do you think is so totally different that it wouldn't be relevant to your region? So let's make this a discussion rather than a monologue. What do you reckon?
Jude, you want to know what's the main thing that you would do differently if you had to do it all over again?
I think, well, it's as much or more for Aileen and Arahia. I think that communities have to take their own course. And I think it's the intentionality and the support to bring people together that makes such a big difference. Aileen's talked about the investment in the glue and has acknowledged Bay Trust, for example. Certainly for Inspiring Communities, our role was initially funded by the J.R. Mackenzie Trust and Bay Trust. And often we find that for communities to start to work together differently, there does need to be some glue. And I think that often in communities, unless there are people with the skills and abilities and cross-sector ability to weave across sector, for example, sitting in councils, there needs to be investment in that. Certainly, Aileen and Arahia, I'd be really interested to hear your perspectives from council and from whakatōhea about what would have really been different, what you do differently from the start.
Yeah, for me, it's a difficult question because we did what we had to get across the line. So when you look back, I guess there's a heap of things that with hindsight you might have done differently, but in the moment we didn't have that hindsight. So, to point to anything in particular is quite tricky. The one thing I'm really pleased I did was resource the project externally. So that means that all the way through all of those business cases and all that work, we tried to put as little impost on the organisation as possible. Because, we've got something like 44 professional staff and we deliver more functions than the Auckland Council and trying to do a $100 million project. So, it's pretty big. So I'm pleased I kept it resourced externally. We had to pay quite a bit for external support to some, in some areas, and other areas people were incredibly generous with their time because they could see the value in it. But I am pleased that we had that external resource. But now I'm thinking, we need to up resource really quickly to actually deliver this project. So yeah, that kind of hasn't answered the question. That's sort of the reverse of the question of what went well, but yeah, so there we go. Arahia, yeah. What do you think?
Well, start to get a little bit, well, obviously reflective. And one thing that I would have thought I would have done differently was come out to our local community earlier. We spent a long time looking for investors, in a hugely frustrating time. But then I think, well, some things you just have to go through to develop those relationships, and as I said, even though it only took 2 weeks to raise the money, that 2 weeks was, the sum of, I think, 15 years of background stuff. So I don't know whether it could have happened any earlier, but I do still bash myself over the head and think, why didn't we just put the faith in ourselves, earlier? It's twos and fro's. Some of these things you just have to go through to develop those relationships and understanding, and then and then all of a sudden it all comes together. But yeah, it would have been great if we'd had the investment a lot earlier, because we're still in that place. Whakatōhea is still pre-settled and we still don't have jobs, but we're getting there.
Just one final thought from me. And listening to what Arahia and Aileen have said, if we're thinking particularly about the top-down meeting the bottom-up, and the important roles, for example, that David and Stakeholder Strategies has played, the thing that Aporiki asked for about 10 years ago on one of the first trips to Wellington was for joined up government across agencies in Wellington, matched by joined up government in the region that really got to know these people, this community, this project and this vision and aspiration. I can remember a couple of years ago, Aileen told us, I think she counted up the number of public sector officials she'd had to brief. At that time, this is years ago, business case number 2, it was 64 individuals who'd come and visited, taken time from the community, asked the same questions, posed the same problems. And the poor communities just have to keep on going and going and going, because government in New Zealand is where so much resource and power lies when it comes to economic development. So yeah, I think a really big message about central government doing things differently and the potential of really supporting these little engines much more effectively is to rethink how central government works across itself and with communities.
Barbara, can I just add 2 quick points to that? The first is to give credit to the region for bringing together its 3 local councils, its EDA and its iwi, through a pretty makeshift arrangement called the Regional Growth Leadership Group, which was the brainchild of the local MP and I think Michael Cullen early on, along with Aileen and others. And that provided an ad hoc infrastructure for decision-making and governance that allowed a common narrative, common project structure that the various mayors and chairs then very strongly supported. So you need some local overarching framework, and that was the framework to which, as kind of consulting economists coming in, to which we reported. So if you don't have that and it's not a whole of regional thing working through a regional council, you probably need to think of some form of arrangement to do that. Second point is that, and this is without any thought to party politics, but government policies change from time to time, you will have all noticed. And as one senior MB official said to me, in the previous government, we had $11 million to spend nationwide on economic development. Now we've got 3,000 million. Yes, our approach is a little different. And Aileen has noted how that was vested in people's attitudes because they were under the gun to make things happen. And I think what that seems to me to mean for EDAs nationwide is that we have, as a profession, a time-limited window here to really put our best foot forward, to integrate the bottom-up and the top-down for each of your regions to grab a slice of what's going and strategize well and implement quickly. Because, you know, now we've got COVID, we've got a deep recession, and it's going to be around for a while. On the other hand, the fiscal framework has shifted from a 20% debt ceiling to 50% so far, and who knows how high. And the Minister of Finance has signalled that he's got $20,000 million yet to ascribe to particular investments, and he wants all your help to decide what to invest it in. Well, I hope he doesn't have to ask too often. We won't see an opportunity like this again in our lifetimes. And so I think it's really important for us to prioritise and then execute pretty hard. That's my 2 cents worth.
So Susan, sorry.
I was just going to ask, I was curious whether your regional growth network or framework or whatever you call it will continue on and look at other projects in the future. Is that part of the soft infrastructure legacy of these amazing projects?
If it doesn't, I'll personally hunt them down and shoot them, but I should pass it on.
Well, I'll be a little bit more tactical there and say, tactful, sorry. We really hope it does. And David's absolutely right. It was the thing that delivered all of these projects and the Whakatane and Kawerau projects. But I think it's quite important that that was at a sub-regional level. When we jump up to a regional level, particularly in our region, we get quite big disparities and great big differences, and it's much harder to reach agreement. In the Eastern Bay of Plenty, it's kind of a geographical unit that works. It has the same underpinning issues, and yeah, it just works at that level. But I think scale it up to the next level, and it's much, much harder.
Absolutely. Got to
So
go.
I would encourage that central government does think at sub-regional levels, and the line my mayor is using at the moment is stuff needs to be community-led, regionally and nationally supported.
And I think the other thing that stood out for me was the very clever strategy of establishing translators between sub-regional, regional and national body. That's obviously worked very well for you, and it's not something that I've seen a great deal of. So great stuff.
Sorry, I was just going to say, how important has it been, do you think? Because Aileen and Arahia, obviously you've been here a long time, and that you've had that sustained leadership and the same people kind of driving this, because it's been a massive journey.
Yeah, and when I reflect on it, we're on our third mayor throughout the progression of this project, not our 23rd. And I think, yeah, without being too political about it, 3-year cycles really aren't that helpful. The thing that's been really helpful for us is, dare I say, 10-year plans, because I hate them, but anyway, 10-year plans, because it does, and infrastructure strategies that make you lay out that long-term vision. And I think having that stability and leadership that just kept on going and kept on persisting, and we fell over how many times? 3 times, and we got it back up again and kept going. And we could easily have changed our proposal. We had people coming in from Wellington and saying, we don't want to do this, but show us what else we can do. And we said, no, we want this. And I think if the leadership had changed, people would be more likely to take the quick win rather than wait for the thing that our community really needed.
And for us as iwi, we think intergenerational. We think, so leaders can come and go, but the vision doesn't change. And it's been a long journey. And my mother was alive, and I didn't have any children. And now my children have got children. But that's the underpinning is, yeah, it's intergenerational. So we'll always say it. It's for our mokos.
Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Jude Thompson, calling in from Te Tai Tukaro. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. It has been really inspiring, the kōrero, but also the way in which you presented it. It's so much of it. Thank you, David, for asking the question. Really resonates with a lot of the mahi that we're doing here in Tai Tukaro. But I also want to do a shout out to EDNZ and to Susan. Thank you so much for providing the platform to bring this to us. And geez, I would just encourage you, there must be lots more great stories. One of the things that I always think, having been around a while, that we don't share enough, and I've had so much from today, and I would just put a wero out to those that are on here from EDNZ to go back to any of those that are in your networks and really encourage them to come on here, because I'd actually love to see this presented again, if possible, with a few more people, because I just think that there's so many learnings here. Certainly the whole sub-regional flavour is coming through much stronger in Tai Tukaro, as well as reminded by Te Hiku Iwi in the far north. It's not all about some of those bigger communities. In fact, being Te Tai Tukaro, it's I'm reminded they will say, no, it's about whānau and hapu, but we won't go there. Anyway, I just want to say it's been really valuable, and it's been incredibly energizing for a Monday afternoon, and thank you for sharing. And good luck with the rest of your journey. Kia ora.
Jude, I think you've just volunteered for the next webinar, haven't you? To do something on Toi Takaro? Toi Takaro? I never say it.
You've got some exciting stuff happening.
Yeah, she will have.
The most exciting iwi settlement in the country.
We have run out of time. Can I thank all of the speakers, and Barbara, thank you both for all of the work you put in coordinating today and liaising for me, and also for running the slideshow today, because we had a bit of a hiccup at the last moment. Can I echo Jude's comments about what a successful project, and congratulations, because to me it's a standout example of inclusive development in this country, which is the other reason I was obviously interested in it. And I think it could be the first of a number of stories from around the regions, listening to Jude. I apologise for the lower attendance than those numbers that registered. I think it's COVID-19 related. People have the best of intentions, and then because they're on the front line of what's happening in many of the regions in terms of economic recovery, they can't necessarily turn up. So apologies for that, but there will be a recording go on the website this afternoon that I will point to in our next newsletter, so people will be able to see it, and you will have a copy to use to distribute yourself as well. So thank you, Nick. Thank you all. Can I encourage you, just as an aside, an important aside, that EDENS does have awards, and it has awards for inclusive development, and we will be running them next year as part of our 2021 conference, and I would love to see an application or nomination from your region for these projects, so keep that in mind. So with that final comment, farewell, and hope to see you all again soon. Take care. Thank you each and every one for attending.
Kia ora.